Welcome to Australian Taekwondo Talk, where we meet the people who make our martial art great. Brought to you by Ageless Taekwondo, part of the Move It Oz initiative, a modified program for over 65s that's accessible, affordable and implemented in a community setting. Stay tuned to find out how you or a loved one can get involved.
Kristy Hitchens is many things. A media and communications officer in local government, a blogger on the internet, an advocate, a mum, a Taekwondo black belt, and the founder of the Pink Belt Project. At a stage of life when many people are giving up on sport and fitness, let alone taking up something brand new and a little scary, Kristy had her life transformed by Taekwondo. And once that happened, she promptly set about paying that gift forward. Hello and welcome to Australian Taekwondo Talk, Kristy.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Long before you were a Taekwondo black belt, you were a typical Taekwondo mum, running the taxi, making sure that all the uniforms were in a presentable state, and then spending long periods of time sitting on a bench, glancing up from your phone from time to time. Is that an accurate characterization?
I think that's fairly accurate, yes, except if you could just call me a Taekwondo black belt again, that would be great, because I can't get enough of hearing that.
Yes, you've earned it. You've well and truly earned it. But it was not a given there for a long time. What made you do the transformation from mum on bench to a woman on the mat?
It was a combination of things that were going on at the time. Our club has mums and dads training together with kids. So while I was sitting on the sidelines warming the benches, there were friends on the floor who were egging me on and trying to encourage me to jump in and have a go. The other thing that happened for us as a family is we lost someone very dear to us to brain cancer, which had this effect on me where I suddenly just had this sense of you got to take opportunities when they come. You can't spend your life sitting on the sidelines. So I kind of made a little deal with myself that if opportunities came along, that I would say yes instead of no, or I'm too busy, or I am worried. So I had that feeling going on. And then also the Taekwondo club that we were at ran a 6-week women's self-defense course. So with this feeling of got to take opportunities when they come along, I decided to jump in and have a go. So that was really where it started for me.
It'd be fair to say that Taekwondo hit you while your defences were down.
I guess in a way, I certainly I hadn't suffered any kind of trauma or anything like that. But I think certainly, I was a person that wasn't the most confident person in the room. So yeah, there was personal work to be done, but I think most people can relate to that.
What happened in those 6 weeks, that introduction to Taekwondo?
A lot of kicking and punching pads, which surprisingly felt really good. So that was one aspect of it. The second aspect was, it was all women, so there was about 20 of us, and it was fun. It was empowering. It was enjoyable. It was great to hang out with all these other women who were feeling a little bit the same as me. So it was a very enjoyable experience.
I want to walk through the various aspects one by one. First of all, there was the fitness. How fit were you when you first hit the mat, and how quickly did that transform?
I have always been pretty active, and I was active at the time. I definitely wasn't unfit, but Taekwondo challenges your body in a way that you have never demanded of it before. So it just required a whole different level of fitness, flexibility, strength, and just courage. So,
did it hurt for a while?
Hell yes.
But the good hurt, right?
It really hurts. And there's, we don't like to admit that because we don't want to scare people off from having a go. But the amazing thing is really when you think about it, it really does, it does cause you pain, it does hurt, but the benefits outweigh that in such a profound way that you just can't help yourself. You have to just keep going.
What about those psychosocial aspects then? You might call it camaraderie, mental well-being, as a newfound sense of strength. Walk us through that.
Well, if I start with the camaraderie part of it, I feel like martial arts friends or friendships happen a lot more quickly and easily than friendships might develop in other areas of your life.
That's fascinating. Why do you think that is?
I have a curious brain, so I like to try and pick these things apart. But I came up with a few conclusions, and I think the sense that you're doing something that not many other people do.
Right.
So you can relate on that level. It requires personal contact. So you got to get up close in someone's face to learn how to defend yourself. And you make friends pretty quick that way. All those sort of personal space issues go out the window.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so, there's a few different reasons, I think, why you relate to people so well within the martial arts. In terms of the other benefits, I think there's a great deal of stress relief and peace that happens both with kicking and punching targets, but also with the kind of active meditation that you undertake in practicing patterns or pumse. It certainly can quiet the mind as well. There's the fitness aspects, and then there's this kind of empowerment and confidence aspect that happens, particularly for women, and that was something that really fascinated me.
Help me to understand that. What does that empowerment look like, and where does it come from?
It's a tricky one to describe, and it's almost something you can't understand until you experience it for yourself. But again, my curious mind had to kind of research this idea and see if it was something that had happened for other people. And what I found was this whole body of research around the benefits of martial arts for women. And what essentially happens when a woman learns to defend herself is kind of this internal shift, and it transfers into all other areas of her life. So all of a sudden, she, A, realises she's worth defending, B, starts to expect more from herself and from others, starts to realise her worth and what she's capable of, that she shouldn't judge her body by how it looks, but what it can do. So many things happen for a woman when she learns martial arts, and I've got goosebumps just talking about it. It's something that I'm really passionate about, and I want other people to know about.
And you put that into action, that awakening in you saw the potential for that awakening in others. Is that the genesis of the Pink Belt Project?
A little bit, yeah. Pink Belt Project was actually inspired by the journey of a friend of mine. Mm-hmm. She was in a situation where she was new to Australia, newly married, and her marriage turned violent. She was training in Taekwondo at the time, and as a result of having to flee her violent marriage and set herself up independently, she could no longer afford to train. Mm-hmm. And that was devastating to me, because knowing all the benefits that it was giving her, I just thought, if there's anybody that needs to be training in Taekwondo at the moment, it's her. So my idea for Pink Belt Project really started with just this idea that I wanted to try and raise money so that she could continue to train, which was not something I shared with her, because she is a fierce, independent, strong young woman, but she was broken by this experience, and I saw it happen in front of my eyes. So certainly I didn't want to come across as trying to give her charity, because I knew that was not something that she wanted, but I had to find a way to get her back to training, and eventually managed to do that.
Because there is a natural relationship between the vulnerability that comes from domestic violence, the damage to self-esteem and self-worth, and then the other side of the coin, all the things that you had experienced from Taekwondo that aided all of those aspects of life.
Absolutely, yes. I think it's as a therapeutic tool, I think it ticks all the boxes.
Did other people immediately see the potential in the Pink Belt project?
They did. And that was one of the amazing things about it, is it started for me to be something so small that I just wanted to help out a friend. I spoke to the team at Australian Taekwondo. They straight away were very supportive. They were in a position where they wanted to encourage more people to join in Taekwondo. So they saw the benefit of it straight away. And after that, once I just started talking to people about it, I always liken it to a horse taking off with me hanging off the reins, dragging along the ground, trying to keep up, because everyone that I spoke to about it was just so enthralled by the idea. Both people that ran Taekwondo clubs, other women, people who worked within the support sector for domestic violence. So many people just saw the benefit for it. So, it's really been an incredible journey.
A couple of years on, what is the state of the project?
The state of the project at the moment is like most of Australia, and dealing with isolation and training that can't occur, and looking to online solutions. But in its first, or at the end of its first year of scholarships, we had 5 women across Australia who had completed 12 months of Taekwondo training at no cost at their local club. When we started 2020, which was to be the second year, we had 20 women about to embark on 12 months training at no cost across Australia.
And how do you decide who gets that opportunity? Are they from a Taekwondo background? Is there some sort of interview process about their personal trauma? How do you decide?
That is by far and wide the hardest part of the project. I have a panel of people that help me make the selections, because it's just not something that I could have taken on my own. The women come from all walks of life. We find them through social media, through service providers, through clubs. So they are required to apply for the scholarships through a Taekwondo club. So we put them in contact with their local Taekwondo club. It's not a rigorous selection process. We just ask a few questions, a little bit about their background, what they think they might get out of the training, and then we try to make our assessments based on that. It's a very difficult task, and you really do want to help everyone. But some of the other things that we look at is if you can understand women who are in the midst of an extremely traumatic experience or relationship, are perhaps not in a position yet in their process of healing to take on a challenge that involves 12 months of commitment. And that's fine. That's why we run annually, because the following year they might be ready. So it needs to be someone who's been through a traumatic experience but has just started to come out the other side. They're in safe accommodation. They're perhaps looking to work, but they are looking for ways to build themselves back up again, and they're ready for that.
For those who've been through it, did they report the transformations that you anticipated?
Absolutely. And that's the information I'm really hopeful I can continue to collect throughout the project, and perhaps one day it will form part of this body of research into the benefits of martial arts. But the 5 women who completed their scholarships last year reported things such as suffering with depression, and within a few months that not being a factor in their lives anymore. Going from volunteering to employment, from finding purpose, finding themselves, a whole host of amazing benefits that they experienced. And it varied depending on their situation, but each one of them absolutely had a profound outcome.
Are you still in touch with them all?
I am, yes.
And I know there's all sorts of privacy and discretion, but are they all doing okay?
I'd like to say yes, but the nature of these situations are so complex. Yeah. So 1 or 2 of them not so well, others great. They're off and running. So all of them got something from the 12 months. Some of them are still training. Some have gone on to continue their training. So it's a process.
for people who are interested in finding out more, the website for the Pink Belt Project is pinkbelt.com.au, and it has all of the high concepts associated that we've been talking about, but also all of the practicalities there as to how you might become involved, whatever your perspective is. So that's pinkbelt.com.au. Can we come back to your personal journey? Where did blogging enter the frame?
I think I've mentioned I'm a journalist, a newspaper journalist by trade, and I've moved on from that profession now. I work in public relations, but I've always considered myself to be a writer. So I guess I always had a professional curiosity about blogging and whether it was something that I would be interested in pursuing. I had that situation where, as I mentioned, I was kind of curious about what I was experiencing in relation to the changes in me in taking up Taekwondo. So like any writer would, I guess I decided to write about the experience. Initially, it was just a little story for my club's website on a bit of a whim and you know, this sense as well still lingering that I should take opportunities when they come. I sent the article to Australian Women's Health magazine. They published it on their website and within a couple of weeks it had been shared on Facebook over 10,000 times. And I was blown away, of course, but I thought I've hit on something here. This is amazing. So yeah, I just decided, I didn't really have a plan in mind. I just decided I'd start writing and see what would happen from there.
What was the connection? I know you've analysed it. It's how you roll. So what was the connection? What spoke to people, do you think?
I think, well, as it turned out, there was a lot of women and parents around the world who had undergone the exact same journey that I had. They'd watched their kids train in Taekwondo or karate or other martial arts. They'd decided to give it a go themselves and had experienced something very similar. So, yeah, there was a whole community of like-minded people out there who all understood the benefits, all understood the journey, and it just created this great connection in a shared experience.
Your blogger name is Mortal Mouse. Where does that come from?
It's kind of a long story, but when I was freelancing, my maiden name is Brown.
Right.
My husband still calls me Brownie. He doesn't call me by my first name. I only know I'm in trouble if he calls me by my first name. So my maiden name was Brown, and when I started my freelance business a long time ago and my children were little, I also read Seth Godin's book, Purple Cow.
Yes, I know it well.
Just wanted to come up with something quirky and fun. So I called my business Brown Mouse, Brown Mouse Communications.
Yep.
So when I had to come up with an idea for my blog name, I thought about the Mortal Mum or, you know, along the lines of Mortal Kombat. But yeah, I decided Mortal Mouse was good because he's kind of deadly but small and fluffy at the same time.
Yeah, and the word mortal is equally interesting because, as you say, it has all of those almost immortal meanings in terms of combat and martial arts, but mortality actually means the fact that we are all vulnerable and that life is short, and so there's a very circular idea there as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I have to ask about your children. Do they still do Taekwondo?
So they do. Mm-hmm. The day I got my black belt was one of the most memorable experiences of my life. My son actually got his second Dan black belt the same day.
Oh, wow.
And it was a goal that he set for us 12 months prior to me getting my black belt. He'd just got his black belt. And knowing the stages of the belts and the progress towards black belt, he worked out in his mind, he was 11 at the time, but he worked out in his mind that if I carried on with my training at the same rate that I had been, that I would be ready to go for my black belt on the same day that he'd be ready to go for his second Dan black belt. It was probably 6 to 12 months sooner than I had mentally prepared for. But when your son throws down a challenge like that, what do you got to do? You have to accept it. So that's how it came about for us. Yes, we achieved our belts that day. Still training. Lucas has actually raised interest in exploring other martial arts besides Taekwondo. So we are currently in a little bit of a state of what next.
Yeah.
My daughter does, she did 12 months of Taekwondo and she really enjoyed it. It definitely improved her confidence. And she's 14 going on 15, so a little bit trying to work out what she'd like to do next as well. So, yeah, it's definitely been a family thing.
That is a curious byproduct of the whole process. There could easily have been a, "Oh, Mom, what are you doing?" response to the whole thing. But clearly they've embraced and encouraged as well, right?
That was a remarkable part of my journey when it first began. Once I came out of that 6 weeks women's self-defense course and moved into the general class, I was terrified. And I clearly remember the very first lesson and wondering whether my son who was already well on his way to black belt, how he would react to having me in the class and whether it would be embarrassing or what he might feel. But I remember walking up the driveway towards the training gym with him, and he was so supportive. He could see that I was really nervous, and he told me that he was proud of me for having a go. It was amazing. It brought out something in him that I haven't seen before. It definitely has been a bonding experience for us.
What's next in your Taekwondo journey?
I've been nursing an injury for the past couple of months, which has been unfortunate. I hurt my back, so I've had to kind of step back from the full-on training for a little while and work on building up my strength in my back and my hips to be able to cope with the higher level of training that comes with being a black belt. So I'm working on that. It's actually fantastic because I can fully see what the benefits are going to be for me down the track, not just with my Taekwondo, but, as you get older. And yeah, I'm glad that I'm in this place where I'm aware of all those things and I can work on them. So I'm doing that for a little while. But yeah, certainly once we get out of this period of isolation and all of our amazing martial arts clubs can get back to normal and start doing what they do, I'll be looking at what's going to be the next challenge.
That woman who was sitting on the bench fiddling on her phone while her kids trained, if you could flop down next to her now, what do you think she'd make of you?
I don't know. In some ways, I don't know if I would recognise myself. In some ways, I'm not that different. I think I'm just a better version of what I was.
Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
I'm more confident. I am more willing to have a crack. It's possibly always been there, but I didn't realise. I've got this determination in me that I didn't know was there. I go after things pretty hard, and I get very excited about being challenged. Yeah, so I don't know, it's kind of hard to describe, I guess, when you're talking about yourself, but I do feel a better version of myself.
Would she be proud of you?
I think so. I think, when I talk to the women who have come out the other side of Pink Belt Project and I read their stories, that definitely gives me the warm glow inside. It's a bit of a hard slog fundraising, but they definitely make it worthwhile.
It has been a thrill to spend some time with you today and to learn a little bit about your transformation and then how you pass that on to others. Taekwondo is very lucky to have you, and thank you for being a part of Australian Taekwondo Talk.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to others about my experience and Pink Belt Project. And if you're a mum sitting on the sideline playing with your phone, give me a call because I'm going to get you to jump in.
Kristy Hitchens.
Now let's learn more about Ageless Taekwondo, part of the Move It Oz initiative.
In each episode of Australian Taekwondo Talk, at about this point, we like to discuss some of the aspects of Ageless Taekwondo, this new and ever more exciting program that is rolling out across Australia. In the last couple of episodes, we have taken a close look at what is in it and how it is executed for the older Australians who get involved in the program. But we thought we'd take the opportunity to drill down into what it means for a club or an instructor that takes this on as a project and looks to bring Ageless Taekwondo to their club and their community. Australian Taekwondo's participation manager is Ben Exton. He's with us again. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Aaron, how you going?
Yes, great, thank you. And I guess we're flipping the coin over this episode. We've been talking a little bit about why somebody might want to get involved from the participation side. Why might somebody want to get involved from the instructing side?
A few key points to touch on here. If you're a club operating in a local community and you've already got some goodwill or good standing in the community, I think tapping in and doing something for this demographic, i.e. the over 65s or over 60s market, will build a lot of goodwill in the community. I also think it's a massively untapped market. For example, boomers and baby boomers, they're referred to, and over 65s, they're fast becoming the most populous demographic in terms of our population. And while they're accounting for the greatest numbers, their health isn't exactly keeping up with that. So I think for instructors, you could provide a good service in your community that builds goodwill for the club and get more referrals through that back into the club as well. Like I said before, you're contributing to improving the health of your local community, building goodwill in your local community, and bringing more people into your own Taekwondo club. And you might get referrals from them, from their grandchildren, etc. So I really think whilst you're not going to be charging the same kind of fees as you would for your traditional classes, there's a lot of benefit to be had in building goodwill in the community for your own club.
Yeah, there's a few points to pick up there, but just before we move on, you outlined, I guess, the quantitative argument there, that there are a lot of boomers, but I think something that's perhaps under-recognised is the qualitative change in older Australians. That is to say, a couple of generations ago, there was a certain, how do I put this delicately, a certain discretion in old age, a certain conservatism in old age, whereas the boomers are much more about living life to the full, taking on new challenges, still expanding their horizons even later in life. And so there's a particular opportunity there to tap into a mindset or a worldview that hasn't existed in this demographic previously.
Yeah, I'd agree. I definitely think they're way more open to trying new things and new forms of exercise and things like that. And I think a lot of the research and reports that a lot of state health departments and our National Department of Health put out is that people in this demographic they're doing new forms of exercise now that didn't exist in the past. They might be mountain biking, road cycling for a lot longer, and getting into things such as ageless Taekwondo. So there's a real opportunity there to target them and provide something that's quite appealing for them in terms of exercise.
And when you say target them, how do you imagine people from this demographic who haven't traditionally had a relationship with Taekwondo might find their way into a club?
Yeah, there's a few options here. What we're finding at the moment is that a lot of the people in this demographic aren't that tech savvy, so it's not like you could use Instagram or Facebook. It's an option, definitely, but it's probably not the primary way to try and get in touch with these people. So the best way is to kind of use marketing materials and flyers and all that kind of stuff, which instructors can find in the guidebook that we've provided for accredited instructors, and target community clubs, bowls clubs, RSLs, put flyers in at medical practices, try and create some relationships with GPs and things like that, because GPs are always referring out their patients to exercise programs in the local area. So it's really about thinking where these groups exist locally and how best to connect with them. For example, we've mentioned before that we're doing some research with Southern Cross University, and they've gone out to RSLs and bowls clubs and things like that at the beginning and spoken at meetings, shown a video of a class and things like that. What I will say in that regard is that they have had to really emphasize that it's not traditional Taekwondo. So in some cases, like we've said, they've actually said this is a new learning program that focuses on balance, learning some patterns, things like that. And it's modified Taekwondo operating under a general Taekwondo batter, but it's really about improving your general health and balance and things like that.
It would seem to me that there's a real brand opportunity here as well to engage the entire family, from the 5-year-olds who are starting out at a club for the very first time to presumably their great-grandmothers, if there's that sort of spread across the community. It's a very visible way to be seen to be engaging with new members of your community as well. So there's a real brand opportunity here as well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the kind of traditional life cycle with participants as clubs is, they'll get a big influx of juniors, real young kids. And then by the time they're 15, unless they're really into Taekwondo, they might drift away and focus on other sports. But you'll keep a few in there. And then from what I've seen with the research and the statistics is that some adults will gravitate back to Taekwondo in the older age as well. But I think, with this aging demographic, there's just a real opportunity to create a good brand with your club in there and attract more participants in. And also for a lot of those full-time clubs that might only operate in the evening, it could be an extra bit of income for you operating mid-morning or mid-afternoon outside of the traditional times as well. What I'll also say, there's an opportunity for the branding there, but in this post-COVID world where the fitness of older Australians was really correlated with how intense the experience was, and if they did have COVID, there was going to be a real big push on improving the fitness of older Australians. So we're kind of uniquely placed to offer something up that can achieve that, and I think it's even more important because some clubs' incomes might have taken a hit and they might be looking for new streams in a post-COVID world. So
I think that's a brilliant point. And the fact that Ageless Taekwondo is an established product, you have all of the support mechanisms that you need to hit go on it in your club right now. As Ben has just articulated, there is about to be a huge number of people who are going to be diving out of their houses for the first time in months with a mindset that says, I'm not going to be caught on the back foot health-wise as I get older. Coronavirus has been the scare that I needed. So it really could be a culmination that comes together into a perfect storm of opportunity for instructors. So hopefully this conversation has further inspired a rollout. As I say, anecdotally, just people listening to Australian Taekwondo Talk, older Australians who have engaged with me anecdotally are like, when is it rolling out in my community? Because there's a real appetite for all of the reasons that we've discussed, Ben, in this chat to make this stuff happen. So I hope that there are a few instructors that are inspired by this conversation to take the leap and enjoy the benefits. Thanks very much, Ben.
Thanks, Aaron. Cheers.
Ben Exton is the Australian Taekwondo Participation Manager. And that is where we leave this episode of Australian Taekwondo Talk. You can get us through all of your preferred download methods: Apple, iTunes, Spotify. We're on YouTube. Wherever you find us, please subscribe. Then you don't have to think about coming and finding an episode. The episode will automatically come to you. Give us a review if you enjoy it. That will put it in front of more people who haven't yet discovered it. And of course, the best way to do that is to tell a friend. So share it around when you see it, and let's spread the gospel of Australian Taekwondo.
For more information on how you can get involved with Ageless Taekwondo and a whole lot more, head to ostkd.com.au. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram too. Thanks for being a part of Australian Taekwondo Talk.